What is going on, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX podcast. And joining me today is fellow wedding industry educator, Megan Gillikin. And I am so excited to jump into her story. She has an amazing story that I can't wait for you all to hear, but then also ask her a couple of questions as we get near to the end of the year here in 2021. Some questions that I think that we can all benefit from, her advice, her experience. So without further ado, Megan, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, I've been looking forward to this. I'm really, really excited to chat.
Awesome. I am as well. I was saying before we got on, I listened to you on a couple of different podcasts in prep for this podcast, and your range of experience is really incredible and very cool from the bit of the corporate background you had. But I don't want to spoil it. I want you to tell us, can you kind of walk us through your journey? How did you become a wedding planner and now an educator?
Yeah. So I got my start out of college working for Marriott hotels in some of the least glamorous positions you could imagine. I worked at the front desk. I worked in banquets. I worked in catering sales. And then several years ago, so back in 2010, I was the venue coordinator at a property here in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I live currently, and got married, had my wedding there, and kind of felt like I was ready for what came next. So I applied for a job with a local planner. She got back to me. We met for what I thought was a job interview. So I came, prepared with all the corporate-y things that you take into an interview. And I remember sitting down and waiting, and she was running a little bit behind, and then a little bit later. And she came in and she sat down next to me in this chair in the Starbucks. And she says, "I'm burned out. I'm looking for someone to take over my business, and I'm leaving in the next 3 months, but I have weddings on the books for next year. And I'm really looking for someone to take over those existing contracts so I can move on to what comes next for me."
Wow. And that's how she started.
That's truly how she started.
Wow. Okay.
And I think I had to put my jaw back up because I had been married 3 weeks at this point. So I went home I remember that feeling of discouragement, because I thought, gosh, I thought this was going to be a door opening for me. And I'm definitely not in a position to purchase a business. I don't have that capacity at this point where I'm at right now in my career. So I went home to my husband again of 3 weeks and said, "This is a bummer. I thought that it was going to be an opportunity to join her team. And, I'm not ready for business ownership." And my husband, who I've now been married to for 11 years, was truly, I remember this moment, his eyes got big and he was like, "Yes, no, this is what you are supposed to do. You are meant to take this path, and we will figure it out." And I believe everyone needs someone like that in their corner when you don't believe in yourself, someone to kind of push you to the next level. And so we did. We took out a small business loan. We refinanced our house. I left my full-time job with Marriott, and I became an owner of a planning business that, from the outside, I've used this analogy before, but it's like that beautiful, shiny apple that you see in the fruit bowl, and you go to grab it and you're like, "This is going to be amazing." And then when you take that bite, have you ever had that apple where it's just grainy and disgusting, it's not good?
Yeah.
That was a business that I bought. So there's that.
Oh, fun. So you go from corporate and Marriott, you kind of touched on that briefly, to being a business owner, and sounds like a very brief amount of time. Was there a point along the way that you had even considered owning a business before? Or when your husband encouraged you to kind of take this leap, was this really the first time that you were like, this is entrepreneurship? Or did you even think about that at all?
I honestly did not. I saw myself climbing the corporate ladder of Marriott hotels, potentially switching to a different brand, but entrepreneurship was not something that had registered to me. I remember saying to him in that conversation that night when I went home, I was like, maybe 5 years from now, maybe that could be something, but definitely not now. And so I think he was the one that sort of opened my eyes to that even being part of my journey.
I really, really like that. What fascinates me is, especially in this industry, from my experience so far, and I actually have another podcast where I've talked to other business owners, not specifically in this industry. And so kind of comparing the two things, from having, businesses in the fitness space and, all sorts of different spaces on this side, to businesses in our industry. The business owners don't seem to have gotten into the business to be business owners.
Yeah, it's like this haphazard thing that we sort of fall into it from a love of other like passions. And then all of a sudden you find yourself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're like, and it's a completely different identity. It's a different flow. Was there a shifting for you in your identity, saying like, you getting your paycheck signed by someone else, to like, maybe you're not even taking a paycheck. You're paying yourself whatever's left over after you handle your expenses. Yeah,
we truly had a small business loan that we were living off of one paycheck at this point, and we were a newly married couple, no children. And I remember thinking, so I don't know, Jonathan, are you an Enneagram follower? Do you get into that at all?
I should. If you can tell me, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to go like this. And then I'm going to look it up later, but I'm not super dialed in like I probably should be.
Okay. So I'm an Enneagram 3, which is the achiever. So
I'm writing that down. Perfect. I'm going to look it up.
I knew that when I like to feel safe. So I like to feel safe, and I like to know that what I'm tackling, there is a path to doing it well. And in my mind, when I lost that set paycheck that was coming in every 2 weeks, I thought, I will figure this out. I will make it a success, no matter the cost. And that kind of came into play in my journey of entrepreneurship several years down the line, in the form of burnout and overwhelm and other mistakes that we often make as entrepreneurs. But that was my thought, like starting day one, was like, I will figure it out. This will be a success. And I did not factor in the human side of it, honestly.
Totally. I love that you said that. And I am going to go look up what your Enneagram score means, but you heard it here, folks. If you're thinking about starting a business, or if you are, maybe you work for someone else who owns their own business, this is a sign that someone who values safety and security can successfully start a business. And starting a business seems risky. It seems like, I don't know how we're going to figure this out. But what you just said is, the determination that it takes to make it work. And even if you do value safety and security, and it seems risky to start a business because you don't know all the answers, you can figure it out, and you can make it happen. And that's why I think resources like the ones that you provide, Megan, and your community that you have, the podcast, things like that are so important, because these are free resources, a lot of times free resources that people can leverage to, take themselves along the journey, maybe a little quicker than some the others of us who had the school of
had to do things all the hard way. Yeah. Yes. All the hard way. And
let's talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we create what we didn't have, perhaps. I think that's what I've tried to do where I'm at now in my career, is creating resources and safety for those entrepreneurs that maybe feel, I think it's a different place from where it was when I started my business back in 2010, because to me, it was real quiet and real lonely. And now I almost think sometimes it can be a little overwhelming and very, very noisy for entrepreneurs, because there's so much information out there. So finding your people and those that truly understand what you're going through was my goal in creating the Planner's Vault, which is my community.
I love it. Yeah. Well, and we'll put links to all of that in the description of this video. And then we'll also have it on Anchor, and it should be, all throughout Spotify and everywhere else that we have this podcast. But I want to touch on that really quick before getting into some more of the year-end stuff that we're going to talk about. But I want to ask about your experience purchasing that business. You purchased the business. You said you kind of really didn't know what you were getting into from a reputation that the business had standpoint. Mm-hmm. What was your experience? Take us through like week 2, week 4, week 6. What's happening? What are you finding out? What's this process that you're on?
Okay. So this was a roller coaster. There were definitely those ups and downs and twisty turvy moments. We signed the contract. I gave my notice at the hotel. And I remember thinking like, wow, I get to make my own schedule. I get to wear jeans to work, like all the things that you think when you become an entrepreneur. And I thought I have bypassed a lot of what I understand from others to be like the startup phase of a business. I've purchased this ready-made business. Now I just need to bring in the bookings. So it felt like it was meant to be a little bit easier. But as I started going out within my market and introducing myself to all the venues and vendors that you would want to build relationships with, I started to hear story after story after story after story of reasons why my new company was no longer on the preferred planner list, or things that had occurred before me being a part of the picture that I was now paying the dues for, from a lack of professional standpoint, or throwing other vendors under the bus, or not taking accountability for mistakes made. I had a couple clients that had recently worked with the original owner that were writing negative reviews of their experience. And it started to become really clear as someone in my mid 20s that like, wow, I just purchased a business that I did not do my due diligence on. It seemed too good to be true. It was exciting. We made some quick moves. And now here I am, the owner of a business that no one wants to work with. And that was, there were definitely moments of like, should I change the name of the business? Should I just consider this a loss and try to go back and get my paying job? Just kind of questioning everything. And I would say for the first 6 months to 2 years of business ownership, I was working to dig out of the hole that I found myself in, based on the past reputation of the business. So every networking event I would go to, every new venue that I would try to introduce myself to, I was trying to overcome stories of the past that I didn't know at the time of purchasing the business.
Wow, that's really tough. So you're thrown directly into a triage situation where you have to not only figure who you are as a brand new business owner, but then also kind of undo and, reteach people how to relate to this brand. It sounds like the brand. So was everything, did you change the name? I got to ask.
I did not actually.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same name from.
Incredible. So challenge accepted. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. So at that point, and I think there's so many amazing corollaries between someone buying a business and then someone maybe even trying to reinvent their brand and reinvent themselves. And, if you're a venue, if you're a planner, if you're a DJ, whatever it is, and you're looking and, here we are at the end of the year, but regardless of the time that you're listening to this, you might be saying, there are some things that we did right this past year. There's some things we did wrong. Maybe we need to be charging higher prices. Maybe we need to be only working with a certain set of clients, but you've trained people to work with you in a specific way. What advice do you have for people who are in this situation, whether it was your situation where you're doing something that you weren't responsible for, or, you've been charging too low, working with the wrong set of clients, and you kind of want to, not necessarily a rebrand, because you didn't rebrand, but you want to redefine the conversation around your brand. How did you do that? How would you counsel people to do that?
Oh, I love this question so much, Jonathan. I think my first piece of advice here would be seek curiosity. So really, instead of assuming what you think people think about your particular business or assuming what you think they need, going into it from a place of curiosity of how your brand can integrate with them and make their life easier. So when I would go on these venue tours and I would hear, I have one specific memory of not even like making it through the elevator doors closing for us to go up to see the venue space, where she was like, listen, I just want to let you know, you're not on our preferred list and I can't see a path to you getting on there again. I know.
Wow.
But to me, I think the question that I recommend this so often in coaching calls with wedding pros, but asking the question of like, hey, I understand that you work with a lot of fill in the blank vendor type. What's working and what's not working? And how could working with my particular vendor type make your life easier? Because I think we don't tend to go at it from that approach. It's more like, how can I get on your preferred list? How can we work together? How can we do more business? And instead, just saying like, what might make your life easier? And that could be we're just beginning our relationship together, or it could be a reset. So perhaps you're listening to this and you are thinking like, man, coming out of the last year to year and a half, I'm really looking to redefine my place in my market and who we are known as an industry company. I think just saying like, hey, what do you need? What would make your life easier moving forward? And that can be the beginning of a new relationship from what it was in the past.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're vocalizing, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're vocalizing, hey, what do you need? How can I serve you? And listening to that. Do you feel like when you say something like that, it puts pressure on the other person to kind of say something that they think that you want to hear, or maybe that you're not getting that like authentic response, or they don't say anything because they like this lady was pretty. It sounds like she was pretty right. She laid it out pretty clearly. I don't think that you're going to get on this list. I mean, that was kind of a blunt thing to say right away, right?
Yeah. I actually think you get a very authentic answer. I felt like it was like opening up this floodgate to things that were experiences that they had in the past. So I wasn't saying like, tell me the exact blueprint to the things that I need to do to get on your preferred list. It was like, hey, and I'm going to give you an example as going to a venue, but like when you're working with planners, what are the things that just like really push your buttons? And then what are the things that really make your life easier? And I'm not asking you to add me to your list or to specifically refer me, but it's just so helpful as I am rebuilding my business or as I'm looking to the future of wanting to serve this category of vendor better. Like what's working and what's not working. And I find that the reaction that you hear the most is like, wow, I never get asked that question. But to be honest, it really drives me crazy when photographers do this, or it really drives me crazy when DJs do this, or I have this experience of working with a florist that went above and beyond because she did XYZ. So it really gets them thinking, and it creates a bond and a connection with that person just from storytelling.
So in addition to that, and I almost feel like this will be a little mini clip of itself, but when, as a planner, going into these situations where you have to reinvent yourself, and then, as time went on and as you started to have a better and better reputation, what are some things that you feel like planners can do to position themselves correctly to get on those lists? Because that's such a important topic. It's important to get on the list. What is that piece there? What are a couple pieces that people can do in addition to asking, what's the path forward there?
Yeah. I think for planners specifically, the Holy Grail is to be put on a venue's preferred planner list. So leading with that question of like, I understand you likely have a list and there's some great planners that you love working with. Is there anything that's missing right now? Whether it is an open house that could take some weight off of your team of bringing in more inquiries? Or is it that you've maybe had a bunch of styled shoots, but there's a different type of style that you're wanting to bring to the space, or a new location that you've added that you want to highlight? Or is there a community event? I think that that's one of those things that is often forgotten about, is that is there a way that you would like to show up in the community that currently maybe you don't have the bandwidth for, but I could take that off of your plate? Those are 3 solid ways that, as a newer planner or a planner that was wanting to get my foot in a door at a venue, that I would approach a venue with almost like a multiple choice buffet offering of like, here's some ways that I could add value with nothing needed in return from you. And I also think potentially going to a venue and saying, I know you have a lot of couples. If there's one that is perhaps needing a little bit of extra help and could benefit from planning of my services, like let me show them some extra special love and let me get my foot in the door and show you how professional I can be, just so that you're not expecting them to refer you without having gotten a sense of your work ethic and professionalism.
So it sounds like you're giving people the advice to give first. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yeah. Deposit before you withdraw, which is like I say that all the time. It's like, we shouldn't be reaching out to vendors and asking for things just off the bat. We should be figuring out ways that we can give so that we're depositing coins into that relationship bank so that eventually you can ask for something from there.
I love that. That's so powerful. But I think it begs the question for any planners listening to this right now, DJs, florists, catering companies, especially after the year we've had, you might be saying to yourself, Megan, that's great. It's nice to hear on the podcast, but I've got no more coins. My coins are gone. These coins are non-existent. I'm already tired. I'm already burnt out. How should people, where do people start with that? Because if someone's not in a position maybe to plan that open house or to follow through with that, especially difficult bride that might need a little bit extra TLC, and maybe they're already stretched thin, what are some of these leverage points? What are some things that people can do to maybe give in low impact ways that can start that relationship without committing a substantial portion of their week?
I get that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I started doing something during the pandemic where I started doing virtual coffee dates with wedding pros just to get to know them. I have a link that I send out still pretty regularly, but I think inviting maybe a couple of your wish list wedding pros that you're wanting to build a relationship with to a virtual coffee. Hey, I know that you're busy. I know that finding time in your schedule to meet me at a coffee shop or grab lunch, that may not be in the cards right now, but I would love to treat you to coffee. I'm sending you this coffee gift card. Can we just spend 20 minutes together so I can get to know you? So if inquiries are coming my way that are a good fit for your venue, for your DJ business, for your florist business, I just know you a little bit more outside of what I can find on the website. And I think asking someone to give you 20 minutes feels really, really different than, can we get lunch together? I don't know if you feel that way. Like, I'll give somebody 20 minutes, but if you're like, can we get lunch? I'm like, oh, I got to drive. I got to get real pants on. I got to drive there. I have to spend an hour and then drive back. But 20 minutes is a really good call to action of, we can all commit that.
Totally. So really just finding low impact ways, finding a 20-minute coffee or something that you can do to kind of, now, if someone's looking to be on a venue list or if they're looking to connect with other pros, would you recommend that people stay focused more on kind of one category, like maybe a planner trying to get on a venues list, or just doing this with other vendors all together to kind of get that breadth?
Yeah. So I did this within my membership. It's like a networking challenge where I asked them to identify 5 to 7 venues in their market that are at the top of their wish list that they want to start building that relationship with. But then I also asked them to do the same for other categories of vendors as well, like 5 to 7 total. So we're looking at 10 to 15 wedding pros that you're going to be intentionally trying to build a relationship with, because you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. So not just venues, but it goes back to the heart of figuring out how you can, whether it's writing a review of that venue, whether it is spotlighting them on your social media. But to me, those are all those easy coins. So maybe you can't plan a full styled shoot. Maybe you can't tackle a community event, but you can definitely write a review, right? These are small ask things that are huge relationship builders in our industry.
I'm hearing service. I'm also hearing empathy, because those things that you list out are so perfect. Like the reviews, the venue, pretty much every business in our industry is looking for those reviews and those referrals. So even if you can't attest to like the quality of the event, you could speak to them personally and say, hey, I've worked with so-and-so at this, this venue. They are so fantastic. They're charming, they're caring. They are, they really try to make a win for their clients. So I think that's really powerful. And really you're meeting them right where they actually need. Like they may not be able to even fit in 20 minutes of coffee, but you're showing them that you're prioritizing what they want.
Right. And I think it's important too, something to note in our industry is that when you're establishing that list of pros, I think it's really valuable to grow with people that are at the same level that you are. So if I'm a year one planner, but I'm reaching out to a photographer that has been around for 15 years and only takes on 4 weddings a year and charges $20,000 per wedding, like it may not be aligned. So that was one of my strategies as well as I was growing is what are the new venues that are popping up that don't know the stories of the original owner that I purchased the business from, or what are these other photographers or florists or DJs that have recently started their business as well that I can build intentional relationships with, and they have the time and they want to get to know me and the feeling is mutual. I think that is a more strategic path to growing your businesses, grow with the people at the level that you're at.
That's a wonderful bit of advice. Well, you mentioned strategy and growing your business. So I think it's a wonderful time to transition to, we're talking about, we're here more or less at the end of 2021. And whether you're listening to this in 2022, 2023, beyond, whenever you're listening to this, whether you are revamping your business, whether you're starting a brand new business, maybe you're pivoting. A lot of people I know pivot was kind of the hot word for 2020 and some of 2021. So many people got out of our industry. A lot of people got into our industry as well. When you are thinking about whether it's redefining or defining for the first time, what are some things that you are challenging your community to do? And maybe you're even doing in your own businesses, multiple businesses, that help set them up for success moving forward?
Yeah. Well, I think part of what I am doing now, and I encourage my community is to do as well, is we tend to get so deep into the day-to-day, right? I especially think in 2021, that was the case, but I have restructured, and I did this because I had a conversation with my friend, Brandy Garr, who's also a podcaster, but I've restructured my week. I've restructured my months. I try to do workations. I do these within my community. We do 2 a year where we pick a location and we go somewhere and we lean into the power of community as well as working on our business instead of in the day-to-day of our business. So trying to find time as we're coming up on the end of 2021, for me, what that looks like is finding a solid week in my schedule where I'm not taking coaching calls. I'm not recording podcasts. I'm not doing any webinars. I'm looking at what went well. And again, if you're listening to this in the middle of 2022, this is still something that you absolutely can do. I would recommend that you do this once a quarter, honestly, where you find some time to sit down and say, hey, okay, when it comes to clients, like, am I working with people that I'm enjoying, or am I still booking clients that are soul sucking? I think we all had some of those clients over the last couple of years. And when it comes to my financials, like, am I able to increase what I'm paying myself? Am I able to start paying myself altogether? When it comes to my personal life outside of work, am I working every single night and always on my phone? And that's become a point of contention in my relationship with my partner. If so, then like, how do I start adjusting? And I think we just get so on that hamster wheel. And I say this because I went through severe burnout in 2016 and 2017 from hustling, like just full on hustle. And then 2017 hit. And for me, that was that like, oh gosh, like I can't continue down this path, or I will no longer be in this industry, or I will be in this industry and I will hate every minute of it. So my call to action for those of you that are listening would be, if you're feeling the after effects of 2021 and you're feeling that overwhelm and burnout, it's a really, really good time, no matter when you're listening to this, to say, I need to take a breath. I need to look at what's working and what's not working. And then I need to make a plan for moving forward from it.
I maybe have a controversial question.
Ooh, I love it.
Point. What would you say is a good way to tell if you are truly overwhelmed or if you are not used to the level of work and commitment that it's going to take to be successful? Because I think there's a line between putting in the work, the hard work, the dedication, the long hours. I mean, success in this industry, and I think in any industry, isn't easy. The people at the top, who have worked very hard to get there, right, or they're sitting on the shoulders of someone else who's worked very hard to get there, or whatever. But there's been a lot of work done, a lot of reputation that's built, a lot that's happened for those people to get to the top. So as those of us who are working hard and coming up are looking at those people, how do we know I need to level up my systems? I need to level up my time management. I need to level up some of those things. Team, right? Yeah. I need to level that up, or I'm truly putting in everything that I've got. I need to take a mental health break, or I need to slow down, or whatever. Can you help me out there?
Such a hard question. I mean, I'll definitely give you my take on it. I don't know if I have the perfect answer. My thought is that yes, you have to hustle when you're starting a business. I don't think that you can avoid it by any means. But I think when you start a business, you're doing all the things. You're wearing every single hat that there is. There's not really any boundaries. At least I'm reflecting back on my first couple of years. Like, I got an inquiry and I would stop whatever I was doing and respond to that inquiry, because I was like, please, paycheck. Like, I need to be able to pay off this loan. So I think the hustle is a part of growing your business. What happens is that you cannot sustain that. So you do have to create safe spaces for yourself. You can work really, really hard. You can be thinking about your business, a lot of the time, but you have to carve out time for the things that are important outside of growing a business. And I wasn't great about that, Jonathan. Honestly, I worked, I have 3 small children, so I have 3 girls. And one of my worst offenses as a business owner is that I worked a wedding on my first daughter's due date and left the wedding and went to the hospital and had her the next day, and then turned around and worked a destination wedding 6 weeks later. And I used to wear that as a badge of honor. Like, I used to be like, "Ooh, look at me. Like, I can do all the things." And then it started to shift for me of like, gosh, you can be so proud of what you're building and want to have an empire. And I believe in that. But I think that there comes a line where you've sacrificed too much. So I'm trying to make sure I answer your question. How do you know? I think it's those check-ins. I almost think it's like you're getting your oil changed in your car. Like, you have to sit down every 3 months and ask yourself, like, am I still excited? Am I excited about where my business is going? Or do I feel guilt and anxiety and resentment every time I open my inbox and I see the overload of emails? And maybe that's a sign to me that you need someone else on your team, or you need to raise your prices, or you need to adjust your marketing of who you're speaking to. And that's where I think having a business coach is so beneficial, because sometimes you don't know what you need. You just know that you're overloaded. But those check-ins are almost like the rest stop that you're pulling off at and saying, okay, am I going on the right path, or do I need to get off at the next exit and shift gears? I'm using a lot of car references and I'm not really into that.
Neither am I, but I'm here for it. I mean, it's working.
I'm like, wow, I'm talking about oil changes and rest stops and shifting gears. But you know what I'm saying? To me, that is how you figure out if it is like true burnout, or if it's just, hey, maybe it's time to bring on that virtual assistant, or it's time to bring on that second shooter, or it's time to bring on that salesperson within the venue. And you're not going to know that if you just go all the time.
So what I hear you saying is taking some time, giving yourself the space to have reflection.
Yes.
Because then you can kind of say, all right, this is what I'm working on right now. I don't love it. I'm not excited about it the way I am before. And it's not because I don't love it. I don't love my planning business. It's because I'm caught up answering a bunch of emails. Now it's time to hire. I love that. And I think you're totally right. Having a coach, having a mentor, even, if someone's listening to this right now and, you're like, I have zero money, I can't pay to be in a coaching course or a mastermind or whatever. There are all sorts of free resources available, like this podcast, like Megan's podcast, like She Creates Business. I mean, there's so much available now that wasn't available before when you started in 2010. And so just taking that and saying like, okay, what am I hearing from these professionals who have gone before me? How can I take some of these things off my shoulders so that I really start enjoying it again?
Yes. And this is why I love discussions like this, because I hope that someone listens to this and thinks, oh my God, like I'm so happy to hear that I'm not the only one that feels like I'm drowning right now. I know there have been moments in my business, honestly, in 2020, when I launched my membership. I launched it 3 weeks before the pandemic. And then my planning business we probably had 75 weddings that we were trying to postpone or cancel, like crisis management. And I use this analogy. I felt like I was treading water while someone was dumping like buckets of water over my head. And I had 3 small children at home. So I guess my point, Jonathan, is that I love these conversations around the human side of our industry, because I think that there's someone that's listening to this that just feels like, okay, I'm not alone, and that there's steps that I can take. Maybe it is carving a day out once a week. Maybe it is taking a workation, which I love. Or maybe it is like finding a free networking community that I can just connect with other planners or other photographers or other venue owners that understand what I'm going through. And that is what I wish I had had back in 2010.
Totally. I love it. Well, Megan, thank you for coming on this show, and thank you for giving your advice and your experience, because, 10 years, the 10 plus years you've been in the industry now, the work that you do, not only for A Southern Soiree, but also your community where you're helping coach and educate people, and then the podcast content you're putting out. I just really see that as very much the tip of the spear in serving our community as a whole. And especially after everything that happened with COVID, but just even in general with the type of industry we're in, it's so important to have those resources. So thank you for coming on this show. And I'm really hoping that people reach out to you and get your perspective. If people are looking to connect with you, where is the best place of all the places? Because you are online quite prolifically, which I love. But where should people connect with you?
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on. I think these conversations and the platform that you have for all of us to connect is so important. Finding me, you can find me most active probably on Instagram, on either at Planner's Vault, which is where I hang out for wedding planners, or on my podcast, which is at Weddings for Real. So Instagram is the best place to find me, and email's good too.
Cool. Amazing. Well, we'll have links to that all in the description so people can quickly find that. But for you, the listener, the viewer, thank you so much for joining us today. And to check out Megan, you can obviously find her stuff for other great episodes. Check out the rest of this channel. And yeah, Megan, thanks again for being on. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jonathan.